Now, I guess in an attempt to do their absolute best to try and salvage the whole, nobody wants to vote for Biden because he's currently actively aiding and abetting a gen. I guess they've expedited the whole rescheduling of cannabis. Biden administration plans to reclassify marijuana, easing restrictions nationwide. Cannabis is currently classified with drugs like heroin and LSD. The administration is expected to schedule it in a category that includes steroids and Tylenol with codeine. The Biden administration will take a historic step forward using federal restrictions on cannabis with plans to announce an interim rule soon reclassifying the drug for the first time since the Controlled Substances Act was enacted more than 50 years ago, four sources with knowledge on the decision said. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, is expected to approve of an opinion by the Department of the Health and Human Services that marijuana should be reclassified from the strictest Schedule 1 to the less stringent Schedule 3. It would be the first time that the U.S. government has acknowledged its potential medical benefits and begun studying them in earnest. So the quick TLDR on rescheduling it to a Schedule 3 is that it would be possible to get via like medical licenses. This also, I believe, means that we can now run more trials on marijuana because historically, because it has been it has been a Schedule 1 drug, it's basically impossible to do any tests on it. And so these are two very, 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 very good things. Of course, yes, 100%. I think that it should be decriminalized entirely. It should be legalized fully. However, this is definitely a step in the right direction. Puerto Rican vegan socialist, thank you so much for the tier 1. It means you can get federal funding for research involving marijuana now? Yes. Yes. And it means that, if I'm not mistaken, it means that you can actually get medical licenses for marijuana, which mean that if you get tested for marijuana, but you have a medical license for using it, you're good. The step to legalization just got a little bit closer as well. Yes. The fact that it would be a higher schedule than Xanax is fucking stupid. Yes. Yes. Schedule 3 drugs can receive federal funding for research. Additionally, banks can officially work with dispensaries who will no longer have to deal strictly in cash. Correct. Yes. Hopefully, psychedelics will be rescheduled too. It makes it much easier to be studied. I mean, LSD being in the same category as heroin is hilarious to me. And like, can LSD be dangerous? Yeah, of course. Is LSD addictive? No. Getting addicted to like a hallucinogenic is like, are we good here, man? Are we good? Are we good? You can't even take acid a bunch of days in a row. Well, you can, but a few days you're taking massive doses to get any kind of high. Well, yeah, it's because your brain, well, I don't know if it's specifically your brain, but basically there's a period of time after taking a hallucinogenic. So like, for example, LSD, where it doesn't matter how much you take, your body builds a tolerance. And so you have to wait for the same dose to hit you at all. Your body builds a very fast, immediate, but short-lived tolerance. Refractory period, kind of. Yeah. Yeah. It's because it has a half-life. And LSD is absolutely something that we should study. At the very least, on like a medical level. I mean, what is ketamine currently scheduled as? Ketamine schedule drug. Is it Schedule 3? Yes. Ketamine is currently scheduled as a Schedule 3 drug, and we sort of already have studies that seem to show that ketamine therapy actually helps for people who are dealing with permanent, consistent chronic depression. It's the same schedule as Adderall, Vyvanse. Yeah. So ketamine has a way higher potential to get you addicted than LSD or even cannabis does, right? And that addiction can actually be something that will hurt you. Because here's the thing, if you get addicted to marijuana, like you get a dependency, not necessarily even a physical dependency, but just like you start needing it every day, like you just can't seem to go a day without it. That's an addiction, right? You now have this habit, you want to keep doing weed. Habit forming, yes. But you can quit cold turkey. You might just be a little bit like depresso. I've heard some people experience nausea, but going cold turkey won't kill you. Like getting addicted to alcohol, right? Some people quit cold turkey and they're fine. Some people quit and they're like, "Ugh, I just feel so like lethargic and annoyed." And some people get like nausea and they start getting dreams again, which they hate. So yeah. Ketamine, on the other hand, you can get so addicted that like I believe the lining in your bladder can degrade to the point where you start, sorry to be gross, but pissing blood. You could take as much weed as you want, you're never going to start pissing blood. It won't happen. I haven't done enough weed to anecdotally confirm it, but I know people who've done enough weed. And they definitely smoke enough weed that if there were going to be negative side effects, they would be happening. For sure. The weed overdose is basically a nap. Yeah. You can vomit uncontrollably. Yeah, but like, I vomit when I sit in a car too long. Like, people with motion sickness be like, you only vomit a lot if you have just way too much fucking weed. If we legalize weed, Taco Bell will be sold out. Oh, fuck. Shit, you're right. Yeah, you're right. No. Yeah, you're right. Feeling nauseous when looking at my phone in a car feels bad, man. Me. Didn't happen in Canada. Taco Bell is fine. Yeah, but in Canada, you guys have food that isn't just fast food, okay? So you fail to recognize that we might be fucked. We might be absolutely fucked. Plus, oh, Taco Bell's so good. Yeah, they have poutine, and they got, like, the good shit. They actually have the good shit. We have, like, the trash fucking poutine. Only when I'm throwing up is if I'm coughing too hard from that good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's see this. What is this? Look at this fucking concern trolling from NBC News. Potential negative effects of easing marijuana.
For more on this potential marijuana policy change, I want to bring in tonight Kevin Sabet. He's a former advisor to the Bush, Clinton, and Obama administrations on drug policy and the president and CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana, a nonprofit working to educate the public on marijuana use. Kevin, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. Let's get right to it. You do not think this is a good idea. Why?
No, it's not. Listen, while it wouldn't legalize marijuana, which I think would be even worse idea, this isn't a good idea because it's going to supersize the marijuana industry. It's going to turn them into big tobacco, which, we all know how that movie ended. It's going to give them tax breaks so they'll be able to commercialize and promote their products. And their products today are super strength, highly potent THC edibles, the cookies, the candies, the concentrates that can be up to 99% potent genetically bred marijuana. So I don't think this is a good idea for public health. It also reeks of electoral politics.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but in Blaine's report, which we just...
I never understand this reeks of electoral politics. Isn't that what they should be doing? shouldn't the candidate you vote for do the things you ask for? What do they think politics is? That's literally politics. It's us saying, hey, we'll vote for you if you do these things for us. And them being like, okay, then I will do these things for you if you vote for me. That's just politics, man. That's literally just politics.
Just saw there, she reports that in the last 20 years, the public sort of sentiment on marijuana has shifted in America, going from 34% of Americans who believe marijuana should be legal to now 70%, and you have nearly half the states who have legalized it. Isn't this sort of the momentum where marijuana is going in America?
Well, there's no doubt the industry's done a great job at tricking people into believing something that the science says is completely the opposite. When you look at what marijuana is doing for psychosis, for example, schizophrenia, increasing it by 5 times the likelihood, according to the Lancet
I'm sorry, can I see the study on this?
Medical Journal, the most prominent one in the world. When you look at IQ loss, 8 points. When you look at
the IQ points thing, as far as we understand from the few studies we actually have, it seems to suggest that any IQ points, besides, before anyone says that IQ is fake, we all know IQ is fake. In my opinion, IQ is only good for one thing, which is measuring IQ. Whatever
Can't believe my
IQ
streamer would
is.
get canceled SMH my head DNM rage.
So IQ is in general very good to see cognitive decline within yourself. So if you take an IQ test and you get a score, right? Whatever your score is, sober, and then you get high and you take a score and suddenly your score is very low. That just shows that you struggle to do that as well as you were able to before. I would compare it to like a driving test, basically. If you put someone in front of a car sober, they should do a good job not hitting a cone. If you put someone in a car and they're high out of their fucking mind, they are in space, and they hit a bunch of they hit a bunch of cones, it doesn't mean they're a bad driver. It just means that they now do that task worse, right? Having a high IQ is not the thing that we should focus our attention on. We should focus our attention on how, like, your ability to take that IQ test is improved when you're sober versus after marijuana, right? And that's really good. Or like trying to see for like cognitive decline, right? People who experience, people who become senile or people who experience mental decline for one reason or another. It's good for that. It's very good for measuring you against yourself being able to do tasks, right? And marijuana definitely makes you dumber, just like alcohol. That's why people take it. And it seems like, from my understanding, from the studies that do exist, the very few ones that exist, that mental decline that is generated by marijuana, it fades over time. So let's say you score like a 90 or 100 or a 150 on an IQ test, and then you get high a lot for like a week. Every day you get high, and then you take an IQ test while you're sober. You should score, let's say, 10 points lower. And then if you take a tea break and not take any marijuana for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're back to what you were before you started taking any. It's been described as a drug that makes your brain cells dormant for a short period of time. That's what it does. That's what, so far, the current science suggests. I'm dumb and smarter while I'm stoned because I get 100% slower, but my thinking gets better. It's weird. It's more that, like, being in an alternate state of mind lets you think about things in a new way, right? So you might think of something in a way that you otherwise wouldn't think of. Weed can actually also improve your ability to recall information if you already know it, and it can help block out distractions. I imagine at very low doses, yeah. Um, there was one other thing that I was gonna say, and then I wanted to continue the video. Oh, we also have very, very, very mild research, again, because it's been a Schedule 1 drug. So if anything, we should be happy rescheduling it as a Schedule 3 drug so that we can have more tests on it. Because currently it's just very hard to be able to get approved to test marijuana and to get any funding for testing with marijuana. And so we legitimately want this better. Like we just want this. This is just better. Okay. The next thing I was going to talk about, also Denim's caffeine exists, alcohol exists, pharmacies exist. These people aren't taking their talking logic. They're just creating panic as usual. Yep. Yep. I tested this on myself. Honestly, I had no adverse effect. I still passed with mostly A's on my tests. Yeah. Also, this is failing to recognize how useful marijuana is for other things. I'm pretty sure with regard to like when it comes to seizures, we are aware that the cannabis plant helps. I think it's cannabis oil. I forget exactly like what in it, if even the THC. It might just be the CBD, but you have to recognize that legalizing cannabis makes getting CBD easier as well. And from my understanding, that has heavy, heavy improvements for seizures. I have a seizure disorder and I have my medical card specifically for that. Not to mention that, yeah, the cannabis plant, it's not marijuana, but the cannabis plant that produces, that does not produce THC. So the weed that you go to the store and buy, that is coming from like, I guess what you would call the fruit of the plant. And there's also something that is in the cannabis plant, like tree family or whatever, called hemp. And the hemp fibers are such amazing tools for usage because they grow really fast. Very similar to bamboo, and why bamboo in general is a better resource than like cutting down wood trees. It's because it grows really fast. And it's the same thing with hemp. Hemp grows really fast. You can use it for lots of stuff. You can use it for paper, for clothing, for bags, all that shit. I took an edible and it was an organic chem quiz and I received a 93 on it while the edible was still in effect. I didn't plan it out. I just forgot it was due before eating the edible. Stop. So many usages for it? Yeah. Well, no. I'm aware. Hemp is not the same thing as marijuana. It's either male or genetically altered to not produce THC. But that's what I'm saying. It's in the sorry, what would you call it? The cannabis family. And you have to understand anything that makes it easier to produce cannabis also makes all the other things easier to create. If cannabis is completely, it's the same plant species, or like the genus, yeah. Anytime you make cannabis easier to create, you're making hemp easier to create. It's just hemp doesn't produce the thing that gets you high. I believe probably, if I'm not mistaken, hemp can have like trace amounts of THC, but they don't actually create the thing that we smoke that gets us high, or the oils that we enjoy in our edibles. So you're not gonna like you're not really gonna get high off of a hemp plant. It's 0.03%, I think. So yeah, it's very important distinction. And again, like I said earlier, it's very important to recognize anytime you're making this general category of cannabis legal or trying to get it closer to legalization, you make everything else much easier to create. Okay, let's continue.
testosterone issues, with reproductive issues, cardiovascular, heart, lung. I mean, smoking anything is not good for you. Inhaling something with hundreds of
But here's the thing, you don't have to smoke weed. You don't have to smoke cannabis. I mean, you guys know I am like the biggest square ass, nerd ass loser. Like, I enjoy myself. Because here's the thing, I feel bad getting drunk in my house. Like, that feels wrong. Getting drunk by yourself just feels wrong. Okay? I don't know what it is. But I also don't like to smoke. Like, I don't like to choose to smoke because smoking is bad for you, inhaling smoke. Now, from my understanding, inhaling cannabis smoke for one reason or another isn't nearly as bad as inhaling cigarette smoke. However, I don't smoke because I'm a nerd. Unless someone is passing it to me, I don't smoke because I'm a nerd. You can easily just have edibles. You don't need to smoke it. You really don't need to.
hydrocarbons and carcinogens is just not a good idea. You would have thought we would have learned our lesson with tobacco, but it seems like we need to learn again.
And then, but along those lines, I mean, should alcohol also be illegal?
Well, I mean, alcohol, is not legal.
Let's watch the mental gymnastics on why alcohol should be legal.
Because it's good for you, right, Tom? Alcohol.
And so this is my problem. This is where it all begins here, okay? As far as I'm concerned, all right, alcohol should be in the same category as weed. In my opinion, it serves the same purpose, which is I just finished my 8-hour shift. I want to go home and fucking relax with the boys. Let's just fucking get high, man. In the same way that maybe you finish your 8-hour shift and you go to the pub or the bar with your friends. It's just, I just want to like go and relax a little bit. Let me just go and relax. Alcohol, okay. It's the same thing, except for one factoid, right? Which is when you get high, all you want to do is lay down and eat food. When you get drunk, depending on the type of drunk person you are, some people fight around. Some people fuck around and find out. I don't know if I've ever seen a high fight before. I've seen lots of drunk fights. I feel like a high fight would be like, I'm gonna get you. Then you just want to watch some TV. Like, I feel like that's what it looks like. I have never seen two high people fighting. Maybe I just don't hang out with enough aggressive people. Fighting high is how they do slow-mos in fight scenes. Yeah, they're like, yeah, like. Also, the cool thing is you will never die from going cold turkey on weed. That's it. It's just true. I've personally spoken to people who've had really bad reactions to going cold turkey because they've been getting high every day for years. And so the withdrawal was like, it was bad for them. Like, they were like vomiting and they were like, yeah, to be fair, I just got high a lot all the time. But they were never at any risk of death. Never, ever, ever. Alcohol, if you have a serious alcohol addiction and you go cold turkey, you're going to die. Or there's a good chance you will. You literally can't. You have to wean yourself off. The most I get is like grumpy and think like, fuck, I want to smoke. Goes away after a couple of days. Admittedly, I've spoken pot for years straight, so I'm not really ever out of it, LOL. Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience as well, which is just like, Sometimes I notice that I'm a smart consumer, guys, okay? I went to business school. And I hate when you go reach for an edible, but you've been getting high for so long that like the edible doesn't really hit anymore because you've built like a tolerance. And it's like, no, I don't want to go find new types of weed. I don't want to do that. So I take tea breaks pretty semi-frequently where I'm like, you know what? I'm getting high a lot lately. Let me just take a week off. Let me just take a week off, focus, not do that. And then that's about, you're just kind of like, everything's so much more boring now. Okay. Well, let me just play some video games and get tilted, I guess. And then you come back and you're like, this is so sick. So glad I took that break. But anyways, yeah. Gotta go for that 1 gram chocolate bar? Nah. No. I don't know about all that. But let's see his defense of alcohol.
It's legal because it's been around Western civilization, used by 80% of Western civilization for the last 5,000 years.
Oh my God.
That's why it's legal. And by the way, we have considerable damage from
appeal to tradition. Really? Guess what? So has weed, you fucking idiots. We made it illegal because we needed something to get mad at.
Alcohol. Don't get me wrong. I mean, alcohol is the #1 drug of abuse for violence and even incarceration. But, if your headlights are broken, you don't try and break your taillights just to be consistent. We should learn from the alcohol example and not normalize and commercialize today's highly potent marijuana.
And you believe marijuana is a gateway drug, right? And not only is it bad by itself, but it could also lead to other bad choices?
Well, it can. I mean, we see that people, if you use marijuana, you're much more likely to use other drugs. But obviously, if you've, use marijuana, it doesn't mean you're definitely going to use other drugs. But again, if you look at people who use cocaine, methamphetamine.
Are we actually unironically going back in time to DARE? Are we done? We're not done with the gateway drug. It's not real, you fucking idiots. It's not real. Having more weed just means you're more likely to eat more food. And more likely to make bad decisions, like ordering 7 pizzas from Domino's. And then you're like, what was I thinking? This is kind of too much. The first 2 pizzas made sense. The next 5 didn't make sense.
I mean, heroin, fentanyl, 98% of them started with alcohol and marijuana, the 2 most.
Then by your own suggestion, shouldn't we make, look at his face. Shouldn't we make alcohol harder to obtain if that's also being a gateway drug, you fucking idiot?
Widely accepted and available drug. So, yeah, it's also not a good idea on that. But I think on its own, this is a different drug than it used to be. It's not Woodstock weed. I don't think you should go to prison. I don't think you should go to jail. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you should be criminalized.
Not the Woodstock weed meme.
But why do we need to go to the other extreme and commercialize it?
So that's my next question. Why do you think President Biden wants to do this?
It's always the people that need weed the most that don't get high.
Unfortunately, I think it's electoral politics. I mean, I think President Biden knows that this isn't good, actually. I think deep down he knows that. I mean, he frankly is the...
Bro, he probably on that Zaza every day. What are you talking about?
Founder of the Office of Drug Policy that established the drug czar. He's the reason we have that. So back in the early 80s, against Ronald Reagan's wishes, believe it or not, he wanted a drug czar. So I think he probably sees this as somewhat of a compromise, maybe between legalization and sort of doing nothing. And I think this is really driven by a lot of his advisors who think this is going to get young people out to vote. But, the recent IOP Harvard poll that you all have referred to many times that many people are talking about, surveying young people's attitudes, marijuana doesn't even register in terms of a top 15 reason why they would even get out to vote. So I actually think this is even wrong on the politics.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, though, you mentioned about alcohol being around for so long. I mean, marijuana has been around for so long, right?
Oh, yeah.
Finally, a fucking newscaster.
Yeah.
You have so many crimes. You have DEA agents who spend countless hours stopping marijuana smugglers as well. It's clearly in the country. It's being grown. It's legalized. Yeah. Wouldn't it be better to sort of make laws, cater laws that could get it maybe under control and help the country in some way? Or do you see that as just completely impossible?
We've tried that I think it's impossible, Tom. We've tried that for over 10 years in Colorado and California. What's happened? We have an underground black market bigger than before legalization, because when you increase the demand, you increase the ability, you increase the ability for the black market and black market actors. We have Chinese national smugglers.
I would have to fact check this, but that doesn't even fucking sound true. Like, just on like a logic perspective, why the fuck would I go to a random ass person selling me weed on the street, selling me some black market weed, when I can get the fucking purple Zaza 2000 Kush that's guaranteed to make me see stars? You guys ever go to I don't buy flour, but you guys ever go to a weed store and they have like those, it's like a jar with a magnifying glass as like a lid, and you can look in and see the strain and like see all like I don't know what they're called, the particles. I don't fucking know. The shit on it. That's so sick. The crystal, yeah, the trichome crystal. That's so cool that you can go and see how clean and how, like, I never am gonna buy any flour ever. But every time I go, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Ooh. And they're like, can I help you? I'm like, oh, just the same. Can I just get the mints? Thank you. The mints are good for me. Those ones are good. I like those. And can I keep looking at these? I mean, sure. Okay. Also, majority report. Thank you guys for the raid. Welcome, raiders. We were talking about the legalization. Well, not legalization. The hypothetical legalization, but more realistically, Biden signing off on rescheduling marijuana as a Schedule 3 drug, which would make it a lot easier for people, I believe, to get medical licenses for it and to be able to do more testing and trials on it. This guy's on crack. Canada is doing legalization and it hasn't cranked up the black market. People just want consistent products, not shady grifters. Well, yeah, I mean, so for example, the people who buy flour in here, right? I know lots of people prefer it. The people in here who buy flour, I have something I would like to say, but the people who buy flour, for a lot of those people, they like buying it pre-ground for the same reason you like buying coffee beans pre-ground. It's because you know your shit isn't cut with anything. There's no weeds in there. You know what you're smoking. You're smoking just this flour, just these crystals. You're smoking a good whatever, right? And then you grind it yourself. So you know what you're getting. You want to grind. A lot of people I know who smoke themselves, they like buying flour, they like the consistency, and they like to grind it themselves and roll it themselves, and they know they're getting a nice clean high. Versus you buy some shit off the street, 90% chance it's probably cut with some fucking like sticks and some grass or some shit. I cook with flour. Flour spelled like a daisy flower. Flour is in reference to smoking weed or being cut with oregano. Yeah. So like, let me see if I can. This is like, here's some pictures of like what the kids call flour. So this would be the cannabis flour, and then they take it and I believe they like dry it or something. And then you buy this thing and then you grind that thing up. This is what I'm talking about, by the way, when I say I like to go to the store and like look at the magnifying glass on like the images. Hold up. How do I want to look at just the image? It's not letting me. That's okay. See, maybe zoomed in. This shit is so cool. I don't care if this makes me a bit of a dweeb. This shit is so cool. That there's all of these like little crystals on it. So yeah, it's the flower of the plant. So you know you're not smoking anything that isn't the actual plant. And people like to do it for, again, if you're not like a weed person, just think of it like coffee. if you buy your own fresh beans from a place that roasts them fresh and you grind the beans yourself, you're going to get a really nice cup of coffee. If you buy some pre-ground beans from like Folgers or whatever, or I don't know, pick Starbucks, pick any place that has pre-ground beans, you're getting way less freshness. And it could be really old stuff. So people are not going to the black market. Why the fuck would you go to the black market when you can go to a store and get the good shit? Like, that's so stupid. That's so dumb. Especially if you're looking for consistency. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But please, let me let him finish.
Are connected to the Chinese Communist Party that are now part of the marijuana industry in this country, growing it in legal states. So, I don't think that is the answer. I'm not saying we should be arresting people, throwing them in prison. By the way,
because the black market is cheaper, move to California. Move to California. This shit is cheap as hell.
this new scheduling decision does nothing to get anybody out of prison. It won't stop arrests for marijuana. I mean, that's sort of the cynical part about this that I'm looking at it, is that it's touted as social justice, but in reality, the people hurt the most are going to be the people with the least number of resources, just like alcohol and tobacco, and I worry about that.
Kevin, what is your solution to try to get, I mean, at least the drug enforcement and the issues of marijuana under control?
Well, look, first, let's do some more research. We need to see what this super strength marijuana is even doing in the long term. We know in the short term it's causing psychosis, things like that. What is it doing in the long term? I don't think we should be arresting, throwing people in prison. Thankfully, we're not doing that. So that's already not happening. I think we need, frankly, Tom, a lot of education, a lot of awareness. In a credible way, not in a scary way, not in a sort of over dramatic way, but in a credible way about what.
Yeah, like DARE, because that worked really well.
What the science is saying. And frankly, when I talk to young people, even if they don't want to believe the science, I just tell them, listen,
I mean, when you say, Kevin, when you say educate, I'm just trying to understand, and I don't mean to be flip here, but I mean, people know they're going to smoke weed, they're going to eat an edible to get high. I mean, what more education do you want to give them?
I don't know if you read Maureen Dowd's column when Colorado legalized marijuana. She had an entire edible and ended up, she thought she was going to die that night. She didn't know that was going to happen. I don't think most Americans realize that it increases psychotic episodes by fivefold.
So from my understanding with regard to the psychosis stuff, I believe that there are some studies that show that people who have schizophrenia, who are predisposed to having schizophrenia because as people in their family have schizophrenia, getting high, taking weed, makes it more likely to manifest. If you do not have any risk of psychosis or schizophrenia or anything like that, you're good. You're fine. You're totally fine. But we have seen that people who have a predisposition to having schizophrenia will experience an early episode because of weed or whatever. That's the same with any drug. Other drugs do the exact same thing. Weed isn't the only trigger for stuff like this as well. Yes. Also, when Colorado first legalized weed, there was an issue with labeling and dose clarity on edibles, and that's been fixed. What we actually need to fix is people's understanding of how edibles work, because a lot of people don't understand that, like, you really need to just wait and not take more. And so a lot of people have bad experiences because they're like, well, I'm just taking one edible. It should be fine. And then they get so high, they're like, I'm hearing voices and shit, man. I'm having a panic attack because I'm way too fucking high. But that's a problem with the marketing, and that's a problem with like people's understanding on dosage. You really should, if you've never had it before, don't take more than like 2 milligrams. And if you don't get high that day, it's fine, okay? The next time, tomorrow, try with 4. Don't start with like 30 or like a whole cookie for the first time. Start with like 2 milligrams. Just start small, okay? Just start as small as you can. And then if you don't feel it, try harder next time. Don't be like, well, I'm not getting high, so now I'm just going to keep eating until I get high. Like, no! Did you ever hear the 911 call of the cop that ate edibles and called 911 because he thought he was dead? Yes. 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 Start with 500 milligrams, pussies. It's like with medication, rarely do any doctors ever prescribe the highest dose. I mean, yeah, that's actually a great example. When you get prescribed for a drug, generally speaking, I've noticed that doctors prescribe drugs at the lowest dosage first, and then they slowly increase it so that they can be like, what did you feel for the past 2 weeks? Did you feel anything? Not really. Okay, we'll raise it a little bit. Okay, well, it seems like maybe we can raise it a little bit more. Antibiotics are different, yeah. Okay.
Increases suicidality, that it's the #1 drug among youth suicide, people who die by suicide, who are young people in Colorado and other legal states. I don't think they realize it doubles your risk of a car crash because you've lost depth perception. I don't think they realize that.
I don't know about you guys, but I literally see don't smoke and drive ads everywhere in California. There is no one here that assumes that they can drive high as shit. You just shouldn't be driving when you're, intoxicated, inebriated, right? The only thing that ends up happening, I think, and if anything, I do think that we should have more PSAs talking about like, hey, really, really, don't do that. But I kind of view it the same way as like the people who are like, I've had one beer, but like I'm fucking 6'4", 250 pounds. I'm probably fine. And they are fine. Like they're not even fucking meeting the threshold for like inebriated at all. And I think that's what some people end up doing as well. But you shouldn't do that. You should drive sober. And if you're not going to be sober, you should just take an Uber. Right? I don't think that there's anyone that thinks that they can get super wasted high and drive.
That's causing cardiovascular incidents. Major study, thousands of people just released by JAMA a few months ago on that. I just don't. I think the industry's done a great job. And again, you mentioned alcohol. I want to go back to that because I'm not trying to sidestep that.
Yeah,
it's true. Marijuana has been used for thousands of years in different cultures. Never to the extent of alcohol. You can't compare. It hasn't been 70% of Western civilization. So I think that is a huge part of this.
But also historically, it's an unfair comparison because I mean, like. There were times in the Middle Ages when it was safer to drink beer than it was to drink water because the water was contaminated.
Sure.
So it is not a fair comparison. But alcohol destroys lives. Alcohol has led to countless deaths and injuries, and the advertisements. I mean, that's a whole. We could have a whole show about that.
Part of the reason that's the case, Tom, is because it's been legal and commercialized by a for-profit industry. It's not just the alcohol. It's tobacco. Same thing. We used tobacco for thousands of years, and people weren't dying of lung cancer until we had big tobacco.
I get it. But would you also argue then less regulation is better? I mean, I just want to be clear on your point.
No. Listen, where it's been legal, I want to see. Listen, I'm all for the regulation where it's been legal. I mean, where it's been legalized, like Colorado, let's get potency caps. We don't need 99% potency. Let's at least do 20%. Let's get rid of child-friendly products. Let's get warning labels. What's happening to pregnant women out there with marijuana is huge. I think
What do you mean child-friendly product? What the fuck are you talking about? They don't sell you weed at a dispensary if you're not an adult. I know that they sell CBD tinctures for people who deal with seizures, and that's the closest that children get to anything cannabis related, but there's no THC in CBD. It's non-psychotic. It's literally just to aid with having seizures. Like the first thing they ask you to do when you walk into a dispensary is give them your ID.
Really underestimating the current damage of marijuana because it's seen still by most people as no big deal.
Right.
And the reality is it's a different drug today. Yeah. And so I don't have my head in the sand, but listen, this industry wants to do nothing of the sort. They won't let warning labels pass. They won't let any of that stuff pass because it hurts their bottom line. This is about profit, Tom. It's about profit over public health. It's about dollars and cents, unfortunately.
Kevin Sabet, I'm so happy we had you on Top Story and we had your perspective tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here and making yourself look like a fucking moron. Appreciate it. What rescheduling means. Since 1971, marijuana has been in the same category as heroin, methamphetamines, and LSD. Each substance under the Schedule 1 classification is defined as a drug with no acceptable
to make a major election.
No acceptable medical use and a high potential for abuse. Schedule 3 substances include heroin, Tylenol with codeine, steroids, and testosterone. By rescheduling cannabis, the drug would be studied and researched to identify concrete medical benefits, opening the door for pharmaceutical companies to get involved with the sale and distribution of medical marijuana in states where it is legal. But we should be for that. Again, like, we want more studies on marijuana. We want to understand how marijuana impacts the body and the brain more. That's good, actually.